The Super Bowl is over, and so is the NFL season, and Brandon Lang wins another Super Bowl. Good job, Brandon. And now, yeah, exactly. And now college hoops and the NBA are in full swing. And as a gambler, it just doesn't get any better than this. We move to a 7-day-a-week schedule of gambling versus that weekend warrior role we've been playing up until now. And I always say this stretch will separate the men from the boys. And if you can't stand the heat, get the fuck out of the kitchen. Welcome to Two for Your Money. Glad you're here. And if you like the show, don't forget to hit subscribe and follow us across all social media. Then you'll get notified each and every time a new show drops. Steve Budin here, legend in my own mind, owner and operator of the largest sports betting company in the world. And I'm joined each and every week by my partner in crime, Super Bowl winner, the always entertaining, reigning heavyweight handicapping champion of the world. I'm talking about Brandon Lang. What's up, champ?
Well, missed you last week. I didn't get a chance to talk about it. I know we always talk the week before the Super Bowl, and I get your take on it. And you made a great point about Mahomes, and it's so hard going against him. It just is. But I'm man enough to admit that I had the Chiefs over Tampa Bay, and I sat there in that first quarter 4 years ago and walked out of the house and said that game's over. They can't protect him. 31-9 final Tampa Bay, and I just couldn't get past that. And I said, I have an eerie feeling that Eagles defensive line is going to do the exact same thing. And man, did they ever game, set, match. So yes, good to be on the right side of this one when I was on the wrong side of the KC Tampa Bay Super Bowl. So interesting to see going forward this offseason, all the things that KC has to do with their offensive line, but more importantly, all these big free agents and where they're going. It's going to be an interesting offseason.
It's interesting. And I did say that the Eagles had to play a perfect game. I think they did play a perfect game.
I agree.
And interesting to get your take on this while we're on the subject. Do you think this is the end of the era of KC, or they bounce back from this? And if nothing else, to me, this kind of solidifies, at least for the foreseeable future, that Tom Brady is the current GOAT.
I knew you were going to say something about that. I didn't agree with the GOAT talk before with everything this kid has done.
Right.
So many close calls in these Super Bowls for him to win. So many close calls in playoff games that they won to get to the Super Bowl. I do believe their run is over. History has a tendency of repeating itself in the NFL. If I were going to tell you that the New England Patriots would win back-to-back Super Bowls in 2003 and 2004, and they would go 10 years before they won another one. That's with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Hard to believe now they went 10 years, then they went on their second mini run. I think the Niners are banged up with all their free agents. I think their window is closed, and Detroit's window is open, and Green Bay's window is open, and Minnesota's window is open, and the Rams' window is open. And then the AFC. How close is Buffalo? How close is Baltimore? Since he's not going to be all banged up, they're coming. And I think for the time being, I think KC's run's over for 3 or 4 years as these other teams have finally caught up. Next year, they make that pass.
Yeah, and I think how much of a role did Tom Brady, what he did at Tampa Bay, kind of help to formulate the opinion that he's the GOAT? I mean, I think without Belichick, showing that maybe it wasn't the Belichick Brady as much as it was the Brady. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, he picked absolutely the most ideal situation you could have. Year before, Tampa had a top 5 defense. Year before, they had 9 losses. 7 of those 9 losses, they had a lead in the fourth quarter, but their quarterback, Jameis Winston, threw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. So they were kind of set up to win now. Give Brady credit. He went in there, and you hear this NFL films on the sideline talk. He made them a winner. He made them accountable. He changed the dynamic of how that team viewed games. I don't think another quarterback could have went in there, let's say Trent Dilfer in the 2000 Ravens when he stepped in and just didn't lose the game. Brady had to teach him how to win. I don't think another quarterback went in there and won a Super Bowl. So, yes, the GOAT status was cemented with that Super Bowl championship without Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I agree. You talked about Baltimore and the Bills. It's funny because Dan Marino, who knows a lot about Super Bowl pain, was on talking about the Bills and how he feels that they're tough and they will overcome this and they will get to the promised land. For me, when you talk about Baltimore, it's a shame that the best team in the NFL doesn't make it to the Super Bowl. I do believe that they are the best team in the NFL.
Couldn't agree more.
But I also believe it's now or never for them. I think that if they don't step up now and do it, I think they could wind up not ever achieving that goal, which would be a shame. They should at least get a shot to play in the Super Bowl. And as far as Brady is concerned, I agree with you. I believe for now at least he's safe as the GOAT. Has the blueprint for how to beat Mahomes and Kansas City been revealed now? Is there anything that other teams will gain from that Super Bowl? Has the aura of invincibility kind of been shattered by this Super Bowl performance?
I think it was there. Yeah. I just don't think teams could implement it. Buffalo 2 years ago at home had him beat in the fourth quarter, couldn't make that one play. Baltimore, AFC Championship last year, had him in their house. Lamar, terrible football game. This year, Buffalo again has the 4th and 5. Josh can't make that play. So KC's been on that cliff, Steve. They've been on that cliff. Nobody's pushed them off, but they've had their hands on him, and Mahomes just slips away before him pushed over. Eagles didn't just push him over.
No.
They picked up that little boy and threw him
There was
over.
no one play that was going to help the KC in that game.
Not at all. So KC's got serious issues.
Yeah.
All over their roster. Salary cap hits now. Mahomes is getting $500 million. Last thing we're going to say on this. Tom Brady never gets credit for going to Kraft and Belichick in the offseason and say, I can restructure my contract so we can keep the nucleus of everybody there. And he never asked and begged to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And therein lies your dynasty. Let's see if Mahomes does that. He's going to have to do something if they're going to keep that roster and nucleus together going forward.
Yeah, I would severely bet against that. But anyway, there are so many sports gambling podcasts out there to choose from. None are like this one. Nowhere where you're going to find two better opinions that come from two more opposite sides of the track. Brandon, hands down, the most well-known handicapper in the industry. Love him or hate him. He's a household name, but only if that house is filled with the type of gamblers that feel like betting on games is like eating pistachios. When you pick a good one, you want another. And when you pick a bad one, you still want even more. And that is Brandon Lang in a nutshell. See what I did there with the nutshell thing? Me, on the other hand, former bookmaker, creator of the offshore and online sports betting industry. For 20 years, I made my money on the dark side, taking the bets. But for the last 20 years, I've joined forces with you, the gambler, and the rest, my friends, is history. Okay, before we get into this week's highlighted hoop picks, got to get your opinion on this, Brandon. Let's talk a little Las Vegas. It's a sunny place for shady people. You lived there for a decade. I worked there for over a decade. And when it comes to gambling and overall entertainment, it's nothing short of the center of the universe. So, New Jersey's internet gambling market set another record in October. Latest proof that people are betting more of their money online than they are in person, at least on the East Coast. Figures released Monday show that the Jersey casinos and their online partners won just over $213 million in October. That beats September's previous record of $208 million. So the question I have here is, does Las Vegas survive the threat of online gambling, and why?
Yeah, I do. And it's the same thing that you and I talked about last time we were in Vegas together, shooting our show. And it's Vegas just has that aura of Vegas. They have the nightclubs. They have the great sports books. They have just being in Vegas. They have great golf. They have the convention center. Vegas is never going to go away. They didn't just build the brand new Fountain Blue because they don't have confidence that Vegas is going to continue to grow. People are going to continue to move there. And having lived there for as long as I did, you as well there, it's never going to go away. Vegas has the aura of, I hate to say it, and I hate to go there, but what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. A lot of great fantasies have happened for people in Vegas, and that's why you go. You go for the dream. You go for the fantasy. Hopefully you get it. Get on that plane, fly back to where you're from going, man, that was a pretty damn good run, bro. But then you look over to your partner who's half cocked, still hammered. Hey, we had a good run, bro. We had a good run. Yeah. That's Vegas, and you're never going to get away from that.
Yeah, what happens in Vegas certainly stays in Vegas, except herpes, right? You bring that shit home with you. Look, at the end of the day, I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. Vegas has done a great job reinventing itself over the decades, and they've become so much more than just a gambling town, right? They have the restaurants, they have the entertainment, they have the shows, they have all the different entertainment options. And they have the best gambling in the world, right? Yeah. Where I can't really say that about Connecticut and New Jersey and all the other options that are on the East Coast, where I could see why playing blackjack in your room might be more appealing than going to the cesspool, otherwise known as Atlantic City, where you can get $2 toothless hookers on the boardwalk at 2 a.m, right? Like, who wants that at the end of the day? And that's really...
LaShonda, come here, babe.
That's really become like synonymous with the Atlantic City experience. When the best thing you can say about it is, oh, I got a great cheesesteak at the White House. Well, there's got to be more to it than that. Vegas is the Mecca. And I actually believe that while you're playing online from your New Jersey house, playing blackjack and playing poker in your underwear, you're dreaming about your trip to Vegas, right? You still want to go to Mecca, where you're not Mr. Budin anymore, you're Mr. B. And they've got your drink, and they know what drink that is, and everybody knows your name, and everybody knows what you like, and everything is set up for you, and you're in that fantasy. There is no fantasy in your bedroom when you're playing blackjack online. But when you're in Vegas in your best clothes for 3 days, always looking good, always looking right, playing this role of this character that you're playing for 3 days. No one delivers that fantasy like Las Vegas, and I think gamblers eat that up. They love it. I don't think it's ever going away. I only think it's being bolstered with online gaming that's reaching more and more people that would have never gambled before, and then once they got a taste, they got to make that trip to the promised land. That's how I feel about it. I'm glad to hear that you agree.
Yeah, I'll just say one last thing. I use the word energy a lot.
Yeah.
You can gamble in your house. You can gamble in your room all you want. But when you sit down at a table in Vegas and people are gambling, the table's got a good vibe, and there's Jim from Phoenix, Arizona, and there's Julie, she's from Sacramento, California, and hey, they're winning a little bit, and you sit down, and now you just start talking and playing, and there's just this great energy you don't find anywhere else. And you sometimes make friends for life with that energy. Sometimes you all go on a roll on that table, make big time money, and go grab a cocktail together.
Right. Like
you said, that's Vegas.
Best line I ever heard at a crap table. A guy said, if my wife makes this hard 6, I'm going to go back to the room and give her the hard 5.5. All right, let's take a quick left turn now to the NBA, where another boring All-Star game has come and gone. Brandon, your thoughts on All-Star Weekend? What were the big takeaways, if any?
I only watched one thing. One thing only. I didn't even know about the format of the 40-point and Steph Curry and the half-court shot. I saw it on ESPN the next day. I turned in to see if the white boy could win 3 in a row.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something.
Return of the Mac.
Oh, my God. The first one over the car. And here's what's so embarrassing. Blake Griffin.
Yep. Most people didn't see that
part of the car.
We're old guys.
He's 6'8".
Yeah.
This boy went over the top of it off his Steve-O. It was incredible. And I saw this kid in high school when when word got out on the internet that there was this kid and he went to Georgetown and really didn't pan out the way they thought he would, but you watch some of his high school highlights on YouTube and your jaw is on the ground. So that's all I watched. It's a joke. They're never going to play defense. The posted total of 315, 340 is gone. They're never going to figure it out. It just goes to show you that the NBA product is suffering.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue to suffer. And there's no Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird to bail it out, Steve-O.
Amen.
They're just not there.
And I gave you a chance to say it. You almost said it. Stephen A. Smith hasn't said it. No one on ESPN. Pat McCaffrey. No one said it, so I'm going to say it. 2 white guys win the slam dunk contest and the three-point contest. First time in the history of the NBA. No one talks about it. No one says it. Is it racist? I don't know. Was it racist? Was it racist when I rooted for Tiger Woods to win in golf? No one had ever won like that. Was it racist? You know, when Arthur Ashe won in tennis and everyone was like, whoa, black guy wins tennis. That's pretty amazing. Is it racist when I want to say, hey, for the first time in the history of the NBA, 2 white boys, a slam dunker, Mac McClung, wins the contest in epic fashion, and Tyler the Hero wins the three-point contest. It's never been done before.
That's awesome.
I just think it's worth a mention.
Awesome.
It's worth, someone's going to mention it, right? And then the last thing they talked a little bit about this, wanting to put in this, with the girls did it first, and it was a big success for $250,000. They want to put in $1 million one-on-one contest next year. I like that idea. What about you?
I do. I really do. And I think that they should turn the NBA All-Star Weekend into exactly that. A one-on-one that takes place, all contest style, all day Sunday. There's this great pickup basketball one-on-one called Knockout.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're familiar with it. Sure. I think you are. You and I are playing one-on-one. There's 4 guys waiting to play. We check ball. I hit a jumper on you. You go out. Next guy comes out. I hit a jumper on him. He comes out. Next guy comes out. I miss. He hits. I set down. He stays out. Yep. Guy who makes it just stays out there knocking everybody out. It's epic.
And first one to 7 or 10 wins.
Yep. And I think the NBA has got to change something to make it entertaining. You put $1 million on the line, and have I told the Ari Emanuel, Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant story yet?
No, we're waiting for it.
Oh my God. All right, I'm gonna break it now. So when I caddied at Riviera to get the movie happen, Ari Emanuel, who has since bought the UFC, was Jeremy Piven's character in Entourage. Ari was my regular for 2 years, every Saturday and Sunday. Got to know Ari very, very well. He did my deal for 2 for the money. Long story short, he goes, hey, I'm having dinner with Phil Jackson on Monday. Give me a question to ask him. And before he could even finish, I said, ask him in their prime, who would win one-on-one, Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant?
Right.
And Ari goes, wow. Great question. So now the next Saturday gets here. Ari shows up on the first tee, big grin on his face like a little kid, and goes, you want the answer? And I said, no, let's get into the round first. So by the second fairway, he's like, I want to tell you. I said, no, I'm going to make you wait. And so by the 7th hole, I go, fine, go. He says, we get to dinner, we start talking, and then I ask him the question. And he said, Phil leans back in his chair and looks off to the right. And just Ari goes, it was surreal because you could see him processing it. You could see him actually watching them in his mind playing one-on-one. Like he's just, and he's 30 seconds. He didn't say a word. He just kind of looked off. And then he came back to Ari and he goes, Ari, I couldn't tell you who's going to win. The only thing I could tell you is this. When they were done playing, there would not be enough mops and buckets to get the blood off the floor.
Yeah.
Now, if that doesn't give you chills up and down your spines from the coach who had them both in their prime, I just was like, wow. And for like the next 4 holes, I kept shaking my head going, wow. You put $1 million on the table. I don't think we'll get that. But I think we'll get more intensity than watching these guys play some kind of half court, full court, half court, 40-point all-star game by teams that are picked by the whoever and coached by celebrities. I just don't get it.
Yeah, and let's be honest, long gone is the team effort in basketball, right? The emphasis on team. Everyone's an I guy, you know what I mean? And I think you put them in a one-on-one situation with full bragging rights and the ability to claim to have beaten the best and to proclaim yourself king of the one-on-one, the best player in the NBA. I think that's going to ring with these new players. That's what they want. They want that accolade. They want that personal, ability to be able to claim to be the best. They have no interest in team. They have no interest in we. They are the I generation. So I do think we're better off with that. Give them what they want, and at least they'll play hard for that title. I couldn't agree with you more. Okay, before we get into the thing that everybody go ahead. Yeah.
Let me say one more thing.
Yeah, sure.
There's a video out there that I want you to go to YouTube and type this in. I want everybody watching this right now to go type it in because it's one of the most amazing things you'll ever see. It's the All-Star game. Shaq's probably in his first, second, or third year. And him and Michael Jordan are playfully playing one-on-one. So Shaq lets Michael have the ball first. And I guess NBA players, if you play one-on-one, 2 dribbles you have to shoot. You can't get more than 2 dribbles. So Mike does 2 dribbles and Mike misses. So Shaq gets the ball.
They also play possession.
7 foot possession, 7'4". And when I tell you, Shaq shows off not only handles through the legs, fakes, comes back, completely jukes Jordan. Jordan almost falls down, and Shaq banks an 8-footer off glass. Yeah. When you watch this, you are completely blown away at the agility, the handles, the quickness of a young Shaq. Yeah. Handles. Steve-O, when we see each other next week on this podcast, you're going to go, we should be able to bring that clip up and show it on the podcast. Yep. It's one of the most unbelievable things you'll ever see with Shaq setting Jordan down. That's one-on-one.
I believe that if Shaq could make consistent free throws, he would have been considered potentially the best player of all time. The one thing that it really impressed me about Magic Johnson and why I believe he's in the top 3 to top 5 ever is the way that he changed his game over time. He developed the three-point shot. As his physical abilities diminished over his career, he brought other aspects to his game that made up for it. Believe it or not, Charles Barkley did that too, right? I don't have him in my top 5, but he was a guy that towards the end of his career developed the three-point shot. And all he really did in the beginning of his career was dunk the ball and go inside and drive the lane. And then he developed the mid-range shot. And then later in his career, he actually developed a three-point shot, and it extended his time of relevancy on the court. Shaq never really did that.
Well, Barkley also lost weight because he was a fat pig. So that kind of gets us into Luka Doncic as well. But you do what you got to do.
We thought Barkley was fat back then until you look at him now, right? Now he's fat. When he in the NBA, was he fat? I don't know. Like these days, we've raised the bar so high. I mean, I went to this lingerie store with my wife to look at G-strings. They don't have just G-strings. They got like Elemento P strings. Like I've seen I've never seen anything like it. Like, who's wearing that? It's the entire alphabet. It's not the G anymore. Like, holy cow. It looked like a noose. I didn't know what it was. But anyway, that's maybe for another episode. And before we get into the thing that everybody came for, the weekly free pick winners, let's get excited. That's what we do on this show that no other sports gambling show does. We don't just talk about the winners in sports, but we take a look around the country and discuss what the fuck is going on. B, let's talk Trump now. As everybody knows by now from watching the show, we're both unapologetic patriots and we love Trump, okay? So we get that out there and not pretend like other people that we're independent in some way. But I don't always agree with what Trump says or does. And like when he came out with Warp Speed and the initial, and he initially backed the vaccine, I was against that. I like the fact that he quickly pivoted away from that and made sure that there There were no vaccine mandates. And at this point, I think he's walked away from it completely. Obviously, with Bobby Kennedy as his number one health guy, there's not going to be vaccines anymore like that. And you can look it up yourself. The results of the vaccine were ugly. Now, this week, there's a lot of talk about the efforts to end the Russia-Ukraine war. It was a big promise on the campaign trail with Trump. Zelensky's posturing, he's positioning his negotiation points, while Trump met with Putin without Zelensky. And he responded to Zelensky's ridiculous banter by publicly calling him a dictator and seemingly backing new Ukrainian elections, which is interesting, right? I think Zelensky's got about a 4% approval rate in his country. Lots of people on the left and some on the right have been extremely critical of Trump's alignment with Putin. What do you say, Brandon?
You know, the phone conversation 3.5 years ago probably sounded something like this. Hey, Sleepy Joe, it's Ski here. Ukraine, I need some money. Just go millions, 350, 400. I'll buy some weapons for you, and then we can get some fat cat politicians in Washington some extra money. What do you think?
All right, man. How much is I'll send for 450 million? All right? All right, perfect. All right, bye. Hey, we need to send four. I know we've sent 2 trillion across the world, but my man needs 350 million. Now our boy Trump goes and says, listen, that's all fine and dandy, but you have to pay that back.
Yeah.
So, of course, your feelings are going to be a little hurt, right? And it doesn't matter how it gets done. Trump's trying to get it done. And the great thing about Trump, Steve-O, and I've always said this, he doesn't care if he hurts your feelings.
Right.
If it's the right thing to do, he's going to do it. End of story.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I agree with everything you said, by the way. And first of all, who's the bigger threat to America, right? Russia or Ukraine?
Russia.
Easy
Absolutely.
answer, right, Russia. So good chess move there. And it may not be the best choice, but it's also an easy one to make when you have to choose between communists, and Russia are communists, and Nazis. You always choose communists. And Ukraine has major Nazi elements in their military and their government. It's well documented. It's well known. So, good choice there. Now, why did Trump call Zelensky a dictator? It's an easy answer. Number one, he's in his 6th year of a 5-year term. Number two, he declared martial law in 2022, and he banned elections ever since then. So, 6th year of a 5-year term, no more elections. Sound like a dictator to you? Number three, he eliminated 11 oppositionary politician and political parties. So 11 opposition political parties have been eliminated. So who can run against him? Nobody. Sound like a dictator to you? Also in 2022, he completely silenced and censored all the news, combined all the news networks into one station, and yeah, it's a government-run station. Sound like a dictator to you? Last one, all journalists that report anything negative are immediately put on the front lines. They're taken out of their jobs. They're put right on the battlefield and they die. And look, by contrast, even Saddam Hussein held elections. And let's not forget Zelensky wasn't elected, right? Obama and Biden removed an actually elected president and put him in a coup. And why? Like you said, to run the biggest money laundering scheme in U.S. history. You're making the money sign. That's exactly right. We sent them over $500 billion since then. And how much of that came back to our politicians who greased the wheel? That's exactly what Musk and Doge are trying to find out. And what did Trump say? 2 things. You said the first one. 1, we want our money back. And 2, Zelensky, you're fired. Still think Ukraine is the good guys? Think again.
Love it. Absolutely love it. The Johnny Manziel right here. The Johnny Manziel, baby. And Obama and Biden are 2 of the biggest crooks. Clinton as well. And listen, last thing I'm going to say, you dig into every single president we've ever had. They're all going to do a couple of things to try to make a little more money financially. They just are. Okay. Trump's not immune to it. Biden, Obama, Clinton, Reagan, go back. Some were just a little more blatant in how they did it. Obama and Biden being right at the top.
Obama came into the presidency with $400,000 in the bank. He's got $150 million now. How's that? How'd that happen? 150 million. How'd that happen? We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to find out. If they don't kill Musk and Trump, we're going to find out.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it's that time now. Let me just take a deep breath and cool off a second. The time you've all been waiting for. Here come the winners. It's this week's free picks. But remember, guys, free picks, they're just that, free picks. For your best chance to win, grab the all-access pass and the premium plays from all our top handicappers. It's absolutely free. It's the all-access pass at 2foryourmoney.com. That's what Brandon and I do. That's what you should do too. Okay, Brandon, let's get down to business. College and pro basketball games are on the docket, so it's time. Let's go head-to-head with your bookie. And I just want to say that it's a Thursday right now that we filmed this podcast, and no one else in the business could do this, right? We're going to talk about Saturday's games, which they haven't even posted lines for yet. But the one thing that Brandon does better than anyone else is he can tell you what the lines are going to be. So he's going to give you the lines for these games that I call out. And you'll see, just like last week, I happened to watch that where he was a half a point off on all lines, which is amazing to do that in advance. He is going to give you the lines and who's going to win these games. And you will see that within a point or two, he is dead on with his calls on the lines. That's not just knowing what team is better than the other team. It's an understanding of who the public perceives as the better team, because the line itself is never meant to depict accurately the final score. What the line is meant to do is to create a price, and that price is supposed to mimic public opinion, so that when the public looks at that game, they say to themselves, oh man, that's the line I would have made on that game. And that creates indecision and two-sided wagering, which benefits the bookie. All right, first up, college basketball Saturday. It's the Tennessee Volunteers at the Texas A&M Aggies. Brandon, what's the line and who's going to cover?
So just so we're very transparent, I give myself a 1 to 2.5 window. Yeah. Remember the Price and Right game where they had to guess the price and the little bar goes up? Okay, so I give myself a 1 to 2.5 point barometer of where I think the line is. This line here, I have Texas A&M anywhere from 1.5 to 3. Yeah. I think it's going to be 2.5. A&M at home. My pick here, Tennessee's been shaky on the road. They were undefeated, number 1 in the country when they rolled into Florida, lost by 30. They've rebounded, had a couple nice wins. They did lose at Vandy on the road. But in this spot here, the early seedings by the NCAA committee came out last week. They have currently A&M a 2 seed. Then just 2 nights ago, they rolled into Mississippi State and got their ass handed to them. Now they're back home. They still have road games at Auburn, at Florida. This is a must-win, quad 1 win for them at home. I don't know if they're going to be able to hold on to that 2 seed the way they lost to Mississippi State. I don't see them beating Auburn and Florida on the road. This is a must-win. I'm going to lay that small number with Texas A&M.
All right, up next, it's Iowa State. The Cyclones are at the Houston Cougars. Again, what do you think this line is going to be, and who do you like to win, champ?
So a team that you would rate similar to Iowa State would be Texas Tech. And Houston was laying 9.5 at home against Texas Tech. Iowa State, I think, is better than Texas Tech, and I think the line maker views that. So I'm going to say we're going to be dealing with a 7 to 8.5 number here. Iowa State lost a tough game at home to Kansas State. Houston at home, not a big favorite guy, but I just think Houston matches up much better with Iowa State than anyone else. I'm inclined that if this number is 7 or less, my lean would be towards Houston. If for whatever reason that line is 8, 8.5, I would look to take the points with Iowa State, judging that line from 7 to 8.5.
And, I just want to reiterate, not only is it hard on a Thursday to come up with what the lines are going to be on Saturday, but college basketball in general is such a much tougher sport to handicap, and it really separates the men from the boys when it comes to handicapping. And the reason is because every couple of years, the players are changing, right? So you don't get to watch certain players and certain coaches over decades and build that gut instinct like you do in the NBA, like you do in the NFL. In college sports, you're seeing a constant turnover, of players. And that requires a certain dedication and effort to the study. And it's a different type of mentality that then you bring to the other sports, where you can look at the lines and your gut instinct says, oh, this line is off. You really have to put the time in. Brandon does that better than anyone I've ever seen, and I've been in this game for 30 plus years. The reason why there's so much opportunity to win betting college basketball is not because the lines makers are deficient. The lines makers, like I said in the earlier segment, they're just trying to mirror public perception, accurately depict what the public thinks. But what the public thinks in college is so far off because they're not like Brandon. They don't put the time in. They don't do the studying. They don't change every year with the new look and the new feel and the new, rosters that all the teams are putting up. They don't roll with that. They just relying on their old knowledge of teams that don't even exist anymore. And because of that, there's a big discrepancy and disparagement in public opinion versus what the actual line should be. And in there lies the opportunity for a studied, schooled, tempered approach to be able to actually make money in college betting. I think Brandon does that better than anyone. I'm done complimenting Brandon for now. That's it. I'm going to go a few shows without it, but there you have it, all in one. Last college game, UConn Huskies at the St. John's. They now call them the Red Storm. Brandon, what do you think the line's going to be, and who do you like to get the money?
First of all, thanks for the love.
Yeah, of course. Every now and then I got to throw a little at you.
I may lose a college game. I may be on the wrong side and get blown out in a college game. Team doesn't do what I handicap do. Coach doesn't have his team ready, but I'll tell you this, you can never accuse me of not knowing what I'm doing when it comes to college basketball and breaking down a game and reading my analysis of that game. Great game here. First and foremost, there's a new documentary that just dropped, Red Storm Rising on Vice. For any basketball fan out there, this is crack cocaine. I've never done crack cocaine. From what I hear, it's very addicting.
I'm not going to challenge you on that one.
This is Rick Pitino. Fuck off. This is Rick Pitino at his absolute best behind the scenes, and the first two episodes are incredible. I can't speak enough about it. Him allowing cameras, they take you back through his whole career, what he's done at St. John's so far, and I can't wait for the rest of the episodes. And they talk about their win in the first meeting between these two. They don't show it yet because it hasn't come up in the first two episodes, but they went into UConn as a 6.5 point underdog and beat them outright 68-62. This St. John's team has 4 losses all year long, one of which they never should have lost in Bahamas to Baylor. They allowed a Baylor shot to count at the end that shouldn't have. The buzzer had already sounded, and they gave Baylor the win anyway. So you're looking at St. John's team that is probably 22-3. They just blew out DePaul last night, and now they come back home to face this UConn team that took their hits early. I call him the whiner because Danny Hurley is just that, a whiner.
Yeah.
My line on this game, you're going to see St. John's probably minus 4.5 to 6. Last Sunday, they played a similar Creighton team at home. They were laying 6.5. I think UConn garnishes a little more respect, and I think St. Johnny's will be laying 4.5 to 6. If you can get the Johnnies at less than 6, I think they're worth a look. But if this line is up towards 6.5, 7, I think you got to give UConn the nod here. See where the line is. The value, I think if the Johnnies are minus 5 or less, you jump on them. If you're getting UConn plus 6 or more, you take the Huskies in that one on Sunday.
Well, I love Rick Pitino, what he did in college, what he then did in the NBA. I even loved him being the first to recognize that, hey, man, these NBA players, they're so far off and far gone, I can't reach them. I'm going back to college where I can be of some assistance and actually teach the game of basketball to someone who's receptive to learning. Because by the time they get to the NBA, they don't care anymore. They're making 10 times as much as the coach. How is the coach the boss of the team when there's any company that I ran, I always made the most. If I don't make the most, how am I considered the boss? If Rick Pitino's making less than the star player, how's he supposed to teach that guy anything? He recognized it and went back to college. But he's legendary for nothing that happened on the basketball court to me.
When you see this doc, he becomes more than legendary. Yeah. They're down 13 at the half to Providence, and he's in the locker room. The kids are sitting there like this, and he basically says something. I can't get it exactly right, but he says, you guys miss a shot, and you go back, you're soft. You're raised soft. Right. You're like little kids. Man up. When adversity hits, you man up. He just calls them out. Yeah. Basically does everything but calls them little pussies. Right. And you got to man up in only the way he could. Yeah. And his son, Richard Pitino, tweeted after that locker room scene and said, that's what I got when I didn't make my bed when I was a kid. So listen, you have to watch it. It's the greatest doc I've ever seen behind the scenes of a college basketball coach and a coach in general. Then if you're a Rick Pitino fan, and I am most certainly a Rick Pitino fan.
So legendary was the wrong word. You're right. He's legendary in every sense of the word for what he's done on the basketball court.
Yep.
But he may be famous for his basketball, but he's infamous for what he did in that nightclub when he banged a chick on the table at the nightclub, in front of everyone. Like, come on, man. Like, has anyone ever done that in the history of sports? Magic Johnson was a player. He never banged a chick on a table in a club. Who got more, pussy than that guy? Nobody. But he never did that. Rick Pitino, my God, banged the chick on a table in a club. Come on, that's some infamous shit right there.
It was at a table at a very famous restaurant in Louisville owned by a very big booster. After that, you had the black hooker who called out the team and the assistant coach. And the hooker went over and the players got an escort that night. And she could have been one of the ugliest hookers you ever seen. And when you're a top 5 program and you got a hooker budget, they better be dime pieces. He wasn't. And that scandal was the tipping point for him out the door. Let's do say he was, of course, found not guilty of all charges, exonerated, which allowed him to get back to Iona 3 years ago and at the Johnnies now. So he was exonerated and he moves forward. Good for us. Good for college basketball because there's nobody better than Rick Pitino.
That's for damn sure. And finally, it's NBA Saturday. Lakers are at the Denver Nuggets. Jokic just about 30 points a game. Murray 21 points a game for Denver versus LeBron's 24 points a game. And Doncic now 26 points a game. It's a huge test for the Lakers' new look. We're going to find out possibly in this game who the actual best player in the NBA is. Me and you, we have already established, lean towards Jokic. We might very well know that after this game. What's going to be the line, Brandon, and who do you like?
It's going to be Denver minus 4.5 to 6. They've won 6 in a row coming out of the All-Star break as we're taping this on Thursday. Lakers just lost to Charlotte. Very bad loss last night in LA, 100-97. LeBron took the last shot, came up short. JJ Redick said, we got the shot we wanted. Luka afterwards said, there's going to be a night where LeBron takes that last shot. I take that last shot. LeBron 4 of 5 in the fourth quarter of that game last night, which would have been Wednesday night, and had scored 12, had just hit a 3 to get it to 98-97. So I get it. But until Luka gets in shape and until they get a big man, Williams, who they were going to get from Charlotte, came over. He failed the physical, right. So they're still without a big man. And until they get somebody in that middle, they're going to continue to struggle. And I think Denver hands it to them here. I think Denver gets it done and sends a message that either you guys get a big man or you're going nowhere. I like Denver on Saturday night.
It's a good call, and this gives us an opportunity to kind of revisit a different subject. We talked about the trade, the big trade that sent Doncic over to LA, and we talked about the losers and the winners, and we all know the losers. We agreed were the Dallas Maverick fans. We also talked about the winners, being once again this LA organization that always seems to put together team after team, superstar after superstar. When seemingly no deal is possible, they make the deal. How they do that is yet to be understood and fully known, but they seem to continue to do that to stay more than relevant, but stay like championship ready, through the decades, which is kind of like the Showtime mystique, right? But we also kind of talked about, was Dallas dismantling the team in a way, kind of like that Major League movie where the owner, Adelson, is going to look to move them to Vegas. Well, and now that we've seen, the fruits of the trade kind of start to take root, have you changed your mind on anything? Do you still think this was a terrible trade for Dallas, which I do? Do you think the Lakers are the real winners here? Is there anything you want to say differently about this than you did the last time we discussed it, when it just happened and it was raw and fresh in our emotional state of being?
I'll just, after watching the Lakers play 3 games now, twice with Utah, All-Star break, and then watching them play last night, my opinion is this, predicated on, if Luka gets in shape and gets in the kind of shape he should be in as a superstar athlete, Lakers win this hands down. But if he doesn't get in shape, if he just keeps playing the way he is, he's going to continue to have small injuries. He's going to continue to miss games, and that does no one no good. On paper, the Lakers got the best of it.
Yep.
But Luka's got to get in shape. Dallas is going to be competitive because Kyrie is that good, and their young bigs are coming back, so they are going to be competitive. But going forward, if Luka buys into it and gets in shape, the Lakers are your definite winners.
Yeah, I agree that they got the best of the trade, but I am going to amend. I still think the Dallas Maverick fans are the losers here, but I'm going to change the winner, here, because while the Lakers did get the best of this deal, no matter what, the real winner here be Kyrie Irving, and I'll tell you why. He is going to opt out of his last year, and he's got this Dallas Maverick team by the balls. And we're going to see now if they're dismantling this team, this controlled demolition on purpose, or if they actually want to build this team and make it a great team, because Kyrie Irving is going to get $350 million for 5 years, as opposed to the $170 million for 3 years that they probably want to pay him, because they got nowhere else to go at this point. So either they're going to give him that $350 million, or they're not. If they don't, we have every right to believe that this is a controlled demolition, and they are breaking this team down on purpose to completely isolate and get rid of the fan base so that they can move this team to Las Vegas. But I think they're going to pay him this $350, and good for him.
Wow.
I was never a Kyrie fan. He was always a little outspoken. He was always, a bit of of a certain type of personality that didn't sit well with me. He's part of the new school. I don't really like the new school that much. I'm an old school guy. But then he did something in Brooklyn that really got me in the heart, and he stood up and he would not take the shot. He wouldn't take, not the basketball shot, but the vaccine, the kill shot, right?
Yeah.
He refused, and he lost millions of dollars to stand up for principle, to stand up for what he believed in, and to stand up for what he thought was a life and death situation, where he was able to do what so many other players wouldn't do, and be an example and say, you know what? No one's going to tell me what to put in my body. I will put in my body what I think is right. And he stood up, and the NBA had to stand down, and it cost him millions. You know what I mean? And he's a hero for doing that. And to me, and he's been proven right. He's been proven right, because you look up anything about those vaccines, the information is not good. All right, so he was right, and now he's going to get $350 million. And you know what I say, man? Good for him, man. Get that money, Kyrie.
Did you get vaccinated?
I did not.
Me neither.
And not
Come
only
on,
that,
man.
I'm not one of
Come
these.
on,
I'm not one.
bro.
I got 6 kids, right? 3 biological and 3 step kids. None of my children got vaccinated, and I'm not one of these dads that says, like, that holds over your head, like, I'm gonna take away your inheritance if you don't get. Like, I don't play that shit, right? I don't do that.
Go- Listen.
I went there. I went there for the vaccine. I went there. I told my kids if they get the shot, that they're cut off. It's over. We're done. You know what I mean? I'm not doing it. And they all listened, thank God. And I think one of the reasons why they listened, Brandon, is because I rarely put my foot down. I don't have to. I've got great kids, very smart. My kids. They're all good kids, and I really have backed them in all their beliefs, and I've supported them, and they've been right as much as they've been wrong. This was the first time that I really put my foot down on something and said no. And they listened. It resonated. It's a lesson to parents out there. If you overuse the no button, it will get diluted and will have no effect. If you save it for when it matters, it tends to work.
Do you remember the movie First Bueller's Day Off?
Yes.
Remember where he's in the restaurant, he's on the phone, and he turns to the camera and he goes, if I'm going to get busted for not getting into a restaurant, it's not going to be by that guy. And it was the maitre d', it was this little weasel, and he's like, that's not the guy. When Fauci got up in front of the world, I turn to my boy and I go, whatever that guy says, go opposite.
Yeah.
Go opposite. That's not my guy. That's not my guy. Oh my God, Steve-O. Comical.
He's what we call the mush. You know what I mean? And he proved it with AIDS, and it was Magic that stood up and said, I'm not going to take those AIDS drugs that Fauci came out with. And Magic showed us the light and showed us a different way, not the AZT way that was killing people, right? Magic did it differently. Kyrie was the guy. It's funny how 2 basketball players in history stood up to Fauci. It was Magic with AIDS. I don't know if you know that. And it was Kyrie, when it came to the mRNA vaccine for COVID. So interesting way to end the show, but that will do it for this week. Don't forget, follow us and hit subscribe. Make sure you go to twoforthemoney.com and grab that 2-day all access pass absolutely free. We will see you next week. For Brandon Lang, I am Steve Budin, and we are Two for Your Money.
That jumper looks good, baby.
It does look